are in the Hoodwood. I'm the Black Bandit, KJ Green, welcoming you to this week's program for July 11th, 2018. Coming up in this edition, the Major League Baseball AllStar Game. Does it really matter anymore? And did they get the selections right? The messes that are Kyrie and Kawhi. The World Cup showdown is set. All that fat dab and head slap, as well as a plethora of opinions and info straight ahead in this edition of Sports from the Hoodwood. Let's go.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for the most honest, unfiltered commentary and insight on the world of sports. Now, once again, here's Hoodwood's hometown hero, KJ Green.
Greetings from the Hoodwood, where the weather is broken just a little bit, at least for 24 hours, and then we go right back into the heat. But my air conditioner has been fixed, thank goodness. And I'm happy in the offices and studios of Black Bandit Productions Enterprises. Greetings, I'm KJ Green, the Black Bandit, and the All-Star Game is just a week away. It's actually next Tuesday. And it used to be called the Midsummer Classic. It used to be the biggest sporting event, basically in sports. I mean, the sporting world just more or less stopped in the middle of July to see what was considered the baseball's best exhibition game. You had the American League, you have the National League, and you saw players that you didn't see too often. I mean, growing up in Cincinnati, I saw all the National League players on a regular basis, but I always wondered about teams from Detroit, Milwaukee, California, Seattle. Those were teams I never saw. I mean, of course, you saw the Yankees on TV all the time, but you really didn't see players from the American League if you were in a National League city, and vice versa. If you were in an American League city, you didn't see National League players. You didn't see National League games. You didn't see players from, stars from the other league, as we used to like to say it. When I was watching National League games, they used to call it the junior circuit, the American League. Now with an American League and a National League game, an interleague game being played every day in the Major League Baseball schedule, interleague games are not as unusual. Nowadays, it would go, even when they decided to go with the interleague games, it was a block of games about in the middle of the season. And it was always really cool to see the Reds and the Indians play because you never saw these two teams on the same field. I mean, you dreamed about it in the World Series, but you didn't really think it was going to happen. Now with the All-Star Game being just basically an exhibition of all-stars, does it really matter? The first Midsummer Classic will be played in the nation's capital for the first time in almost 50 years. Last time they played the All-Star Game in Washington, the team in Washington was the Senators. That team now was the Texas Rangers, and the Nationals at the time were then the first-year Montreal Expos. But Major League Baseball has finally come back to the nation's capital. Even though for 32 of those last 49 years there wasn't a pro team in Washington, D.C., the aforementioned Senators moved to Dallas in 1972, and the Expos finally came to Washington and became the Nationals in 2005. The game we played the day before what I know as the slowest day in sports. The only day that there are no games in any of the four pro leagues. Of course, Major League Baseball taking the day off after the All-Star Game. The NBA season's been over about a month. Won't start back here for another 3 months. NFL training camps don't even start till the end of the month. And the NHL interminably long season, preseason doesn't start till the middle of September. So with no pro games on July 18th, That's the ESPYs are on, when they can get as many pro players in Los Angeles as they can get. But I will wager that there will be some sort of crazy announcement by at least one of the major sports leagues that day. The NFL will come out with some sort of attention-grabbing, headline-grabbing incident, or the NBA will have a big major signing. Something will happen, I can guarantee, on that day. There was a time when this game actually mattered, though. Remember Pete Rose bowling over Ray Fosse in the 1970 AllStar Game, which was played in Cincinnati. Reggie Jacks hitting one off the roof in the 1971 MLB All-Star Game in Tiger Stadium. Freddie Lynn's Grand Slam, which was the first one in All-Star Game history in its 50th game. Tony Gwynn chugging home and beating a throw to win the 1994 All-Star Game in extra innings with the specter of the strike on the horizon. I remember that game because it just seemed like it was just so much emotion and fire and passion in that game. And when the Nationals won the game, I still remember thinking the late Skip Carey going when Gwynn slid across the plate, Braves win, Braves win. Skip, it's the National League. Oh, Nationals win, Nationals win. It didn't matter. Bad joke. But anyway, there was a time when this game was watched and was fun to watch. The mind-numbingly boring 1988 game in Old Riverfront Stadium being an exception, but I digress. Now the game is a rotation of players and managers wanting to get everybody a participation trophy. The Astros, Red Sox, and Indians are sending 5 players each to the Midsummer Classic. The Cubs and the Braves are starting 2 players each in the NL, while the Red Sox have 2 starters of their own. Surprisingly, there are some snubs in this game. With the selection of the roster after the fan vote, there's some carping about who was left out. You know, I do like that the MLB has a last roster spot vote open for both leagues and makes that part of a fan vote. And I'm pretty sure there'll be a roster spot that opens up when Justin Verlander asks out of the game, since he starts on the final Sunday before the All-Star Game break, so he will more than likely not pitch on that Tuesday. And I'm hoping that spot gets filled by Blake Snell of the Tampa Bay Rays. He leads the AL in ERA, has a dozen wins, and is top 5 in a number of key pitching categories. But because he plays for Tampa, he is more or less overlooked. How does Giancarlo Stanton go from perennial NL All-Star to not even making the AL team? Someone please explain that to me. I know he's batting .269 and strikes out way too much, but he's Giancarlo Stanton. He had 57 home runs last year, and he's playing for the Yankees, for crying out loud. Aaron Judge, of course, his outfield mate, made the All-Star team via the fan vote, but Giancarlo Stanton was overlooked. On the NL side, your question wasn't who gets left off, but how do you include someone from every team? The Reds are 11 games under 500, but they send 3 players. And while you're struggling to find deserving players from the Pirates, quick, name their All-Star. We'll get back to that. I was actually shocked that Matt Kemp, is he still in this league? Matt Kemp not only made the squad, but got voted in as a starter. There were some that didn't even think he would make the Dodgers out of spring training, much less being batting a crisp .312 with a respectable 15 home runs and 58 RBIs as of Wednesday evening. But like the old Tupac song, I ain't mad at you. Go on with your bad self, Matt Kemp, with your 34-year-old butt. Oh, and by the way, the Pirates' lone All-Star is relief pitcher Felipe Vasquez, by the way. Take a time out, come right back with more sports from the Hoodwood after this.